March and April are times when farmers are out in the field. They've done most of their planning, they've made their commitments to the markets that they're going to be delivering to. Most of the planning is done, and the commitments to whatever market channels farmers are going to be working toward are already in place. And in the local food systems, a lot of those relationships and partnerships that had been established from previous years were well in place, and farmers anticipating building on those opportunities had committed here in 2020 to move into that space. But 2020, as we know, was not going to be a typical year, and the business as usual idea was quickly turned on its head, and farmers and others in the local food system scrambling almost immediately to figure out how they were going to be resilient, responsive, and adapt in really crazy upside down system. Local foods, where we're talking about farm products that are produced locally and then distributed to other market channels that are nearby, impact and show up in many, many different market channels. Restaurants, schools, institutions of various kinds. No market channel was without its disruption. Farm to school programs that had thrived and restaurants that had sourced local products and used that as an important way of differentiation have all been an important part of our local food system and part of our unique opportunities that were characteristic to a lot of, particularly our small scale farms. Impacts were showing up all over the system as we just sort of looked at some of the changes that were taking place. Supermarkets, restaurants, all saw big changes that were taking place with pivoting to online grocery and food consumption at home, moving away from restaurant consumption. Businesses changed dramatically, and the supplier partners, including the local farms supplying in these spaces, also changed dramatically. In some cases, the interest and the opportunity for local food actually increased. This shows just Google search activity for things like local food, cottage food, home gardening, all took big spikes, as did, as you could see, online groceries, just because many restaurants were closed, schools were closed, and many of the traditional platforms where local food is marketed were closed. The interest amongst consumers was showing up in many places, in farmers markets, CSAs, very quickly filling and even becoming oversubscribed. Consumers were increasingly interested in not just where their food came from, but even being sure that they could have some food security during this time of disruption. Which leads us to our project. We've had an opportunity to do a project with the USDA Ag Marketing Service, and an opportunity to bring together a large coalition of entities that themselves are working in coordinating and providing technical assistance across the local food system. A great group of organizations with lots of expertise, national reach, looking at everything from farmers markets, produce auctions, even local sustainable fisheries, to the retail grocery space, farm to school, food hubs, CSA, the restaurant space. Lots of great partners that have come together in this project to look at how can the local food system be resilient, how can it build better beyond, and are there ways that we can learn together as this community of this. We've committed in this project to do a lot of listening, a lot of impact measures that are gathered and collected from the different communities of practice themselves, to share ideas and innovations, to do a lot of share out both within the communities that are experiencing this, but also to start to develop some resources that are sharing out to the larger world of people interested in local food systems, and ultimately trying to learn from this experience to help position people within the local food system for better opportunities looking into 2021 and beyond. Out of these listening sessions, we heard a lot. These food system leaders that are involved in these various marketing channels, working with farmers, seeing lots of issues. There's lots of positive, hopeful opportunity, pointing forward with some optimism, but a lot of exhaustion and worry and concern about survival, lots of hand-wringing, and I could just tell you firsthand, working with these folks, a lot of people just exhausted from the incredible amount of hard work that's been involved in trying to help our farmers and local food system partners adapt in this. We've tried to create many things out of this. The listening sessions were intended and designed to help create some initial impact assessments. And so across 17 communities of practice, gathering data and organizing information in each one of these communities of practice on some initial measures of the impact of this COVID-19 disruption, obstacles, and adaptations. What are some of the key stories? One of the things that is immediately obvious as we've been working with folks is that the COVID disruption has impacted each sector differently. It's a different story in the farm to restaurant, farm to school, local seafoods and CSA, and even agritourism. Each one of these has a different way in which the COVID disruption has impacted them. And so trying to collect and frame that story has been a big part of what we've done. And so we've collected these initial impacts, some great reports that are available, and created this project website where we're housing everything. One of the things that we're also trying to collect here are lots of stories, innovations where collected out of these different communities of practice, we're identifying ways where partners within these groups have done really creative things, both in terms of how they pivot and managing the limitations of not being able to do things in person, to online platforms, virtual CSA fairs, and ways to engage with consumers, lots of electronic data and interfacing and collection and exchange, to just some really innovative ways that communities have come together to provide food access for consumers that otherwise weren't going to be able to get access to it. Collecting these stories and also putting these up on our project. Each one of these innovation briefs is a little case story that's typically a 2 to 4 or 5 page at the most, little case study, frames the issue, talks about the innovation, points to the outcome, and is really framed in this space of how does this disruption help us move to building better beyond as we're looking at these. And so the project site is also a place where the various partners and communities of practice have put many of their own individual resources, with sort of the idea that they can share across these communities of practice that weren't before this disruption necessarily working together. And lots of activity. This has just been a wonderful resource with a lot of traffic for folks that are working in the local food system space to be able to see what other kinds of resources are being developed. And so a place to house our outputs, our webinars, partner links, lots and lots of good material organized in this space. One of the things that we've done to try to help facilitate this communication across these communities of practice, we have the Community of Practice Coordinating Organization, we refer to as these COPCOs. And each month we have a big community-wide meeting. We do a feature with each one of these communities of practice. Just wanted to share with you just a few little snips of what part of that looks like. But those share outs have just been wonderful and a great learning opportunity for everybody involved working in the local food system to better understand the issues, some of the dynamics, and some of the innovations that are taking place. One of them that we've heard from is a group called the Local Catch Network. You can see here a truly national, all over North America, local fisheries program. And this program, led out of the University of Maine, is a super program that has helped us to get a better understanding of how COVID issues have impacted fishers that are involved in local, working with local markets, and the surge and increase in interest that year over year had just surged during this 2020 period, and looking for ways where fisheries can be innovative, even in the agritourism space, creating something like an oyster trail where there are oyster fisher operations that are located up and down the coast of Maine that set up something sort of like a wine trail, but provide opportunities even in a COVID limited environment for people to go and collect their own. Another one of the communities of practice is the Washington State University Bread Lab, and working with nationally, again, specialty non-commodity grains. That itself is a very interesting sector of our food commodity that has had a lot of innovation, a lot of opportunities. But in this time of food disruption, so many innovations that they've done in providing access and utilization of local grain products through this Bread Lab program, these neighborhood loaves programs that provide good quality bread utilizing local grain into places where food assistance has been needed. Of course, the Farm to School network has been one that has been seeing just incredible, unprecedented disruption and uncertainty, and the impacts that this has had across communities of every size, race, economic strata, where there's had been a lot of great programming around local food and how it plays into the local food economy there. Schools closed, lunch programs were discontinued. Some try to be innovative to provide through the school some emergency response. We have lots of great examples of that and some great idea sharing about how to work with schools and through schools to be able to get food products out into the community. And of course, in our project, we're emphasizing especially how do local farms work with this system. And so recognizing that, of course, we have many communities that are particularly hard hit during these times of disruption, and the challenges of being able to work in these communities is especially difficult, and the need for innovation and idea sharing and finding solutions to do this is extremely important. Certified kitchens have also played an important role for many farms, many of them involved in value-added products and bringing these products out to market. Seeing a big growth in those certified kitchen activities really across the country, and just the challenges, of course, of being able to work with the clients that are trying to work through these kitchens to take advantage of the sudden surge in demand and interest in local products, but to do it safely, get the technical support required in this particularly challenging time. And then the marketing side and helping these folks that are developing these products through these kitchens get products into a market that, as we've said, is just not doing business as usual at all. And so the technical support in this space just looking very different. So just to pull the last couple ideas together, so many great things that are going on in this project and things that we're learning, and both within our meetings within this group and the 17 communities of practice that are involved, but also making a commitment here now to start to share out some of the things that we're learning, developing our own webinar series that is sharing out these opportunities, these ideas, weighing in together with some of our community of practice leaders on how we can build better beyond. And so encourage you, if you're interested, to look at the webinar series and to hear some more from some of these local food systems leaders on some of the issues and approaches that they're building forward. One of the things that's also a product of this activity and project is a social network analysis, and trying to measure within this community, as we've brought these 17 communities of practice together, the idea sharing, the project development, resource sharing, lots of really good collective idea development, and then thinking about how can we systematically measure the impacts and benefits of bringing these groups together more intentionally in the context of this COVID response to try to build better beyond. And so appreciate the chance to visit with you. Look forward to hearing some questions, and certainly as we look forward to how this COVID disruption is playing out, the story is still being told, and to see how it's going to be impacting the resilience of our local food system, the sustainability of these markets, and the environments and communities in which these are taking place, and the role and place of local food in these markets.